even for people that may not have a desire to go into a church, maybe people who don't find themselves very religious. There's going to be noise, so why not look at the church, places that are sacred, as a place for silence?
So Father, here on this terrace, it's actually quite peaceful with all the
nice.
trees around. But we just look down this wall in the center of the city of Rome. It's so noisy.
Absolutely.
It's really distracting.
Yeah.
So many people.
Yeah.
How do you cope with
Chaotic.
that?
Just right below us, you couldn't hear yourself think. I think that's going to be a challenge. You know, when people come to Rome on pilgrimage, you're going to be constantly in and out of very noisy places, but also going into places that are very silent. I think just even going into a church, I'm sure there's people that are going to be using this Jubilee app, EWTN Jubilee app, that, you know, maybe they're not Catholic. Maybe they are Catholic, but they're not practicing Catholic. They haven't been into a church for a while. I think to go in with hope, you know, with expectation. The church welcomes anybody to come to pray.
Yeah.
Certainly, I mean, I know in Hanceville, many people come to Hanceville that are just drawn in by beauty.
It's a huge shrine that Mother Angelica built.
Shrine in Hanceville, Alabama, and people are drawn in there by the simple beauty of the place.
Uh-huh.
And I think in Rome, they're going to experience that too as well. And there's so many places that just the beauty alone is enough to spark something in you.
Beauty plays a special role in all of this, no?
Absolutely. And just recently I heard a story of conversion of a young girl who herself, she wasn't Catholic. She actually lived a very decadent life, a very sinful life. And on a trip over to Rome, she found herself wanting to act like a Catholic. So she went and actually bought a veil and everything. She wanted to simply look Catholic. She wanted to play the part, so to speak. But she found herself going into the churches and being drawn in by the beauty, by sacred art.
Yeah.
I think when people go to St. Peter's Basilica, it's one of the biggest churches in the world. One of the first things that you'll see when you go in is the Pietà. Blessed Mother simply holding her son, her dead son, in her arms. It's one of the most beautiful statues that I think in all of Rome.
Yeah.
But how about this? I think that there's going to be a lot of hustle and bustle in Rome. There's going to be a lot of chaos on the streets.
During the Jubilee,
like we just experienced on the way here. During the Jubilee, because there's going to be, 30,000 plus pilgrims during the year?
30 million.
Oh, 30
million plus.
Yeah, what am I thinking? 30 million pilgrims. There's going to be noise, so why not look at the church, places that are sacred, as a place for silence? I think that would be a great happy medium, even for people that may not have a desire to go into a church, maybe people who don't find themselves very religious. Why not go into a church as a place to quiet yourself down?
But you know, something more theological now, Father.
Sure.
Because I love going in the mountains. They're big mountains. The Apennine is not far from Rome, just an hour away. I love to take my kids there. We go hiking up there. And a lot of people will say, well, you know, I can find God also in nature, which I totally believe is true. I mean, God is the creator.
Yep.
He created all of this. But why churches?
Yeah.
What is so special about? What is so
Yes.
special inside churches?
Well, I think the church houses the Blessed Sacrament,
The Blessed Sacrament.
the real presence of Christ. We speak of the real presence of Christ, capital R, because, I mean, God is present, Christ is present in all places. But the real presence of Christ we speak about as Catholics, as Christians, is
So
in the
not just
tabernacle.
theoretical.
In the tabernacle,
He's
the
really
real
there.
presence, the substantial presence of Christ. That's what happens on the altar during the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass. People may walk in a church throughout this Jubilee year and they may see all kinds of people attending a service. They
Yeah.
may see a priest up there with the white alb on, all kinds of vestments on.
Sure.
They might see bishops with pointy hats.
Yeah.
What in the world is that? Why are they wearing all these things? Because it's really what they're doing when they're at the altar. Is they're bringing Christ down on the altar.
You know, I
into
also
their
see
hands.
my children, and some of them are very young and, you know, noisy and running around and so on, but they're reacting
And that's
to the
okay.
church building.
That's okay. If parents come to the Jubilee and bring their children,
Yeah.
and maybe some parents are kind of a little hesitant to bring their kids to churches because their
No,
kids.
they should,
Their
yeah,
no, please. I mean, as a priest, I am so overjoyed. I'm so happy when families bring their children when they're crying. A church that is not crying is dying, in my opinion. So bring your kids to church. Even if you want to, you know, be quiet a little bit and your kids are kind of rustling around, no, bring
But-
them to church.
And I think there's a special way also that children react to church and to church buildings. I see that. It's like they do maybe understand more than us the grandeur
Yeah.
that is housed in a place like this.
Yeah, I think it could have an impact on the child. I remember when I was first coming back to the faith when I was 21, and this was a particular day. It was Christmas morning, and I went to adoration Christmas morning when I was 21, and I'll never forget this little 4-year-old girl came in with her mother. She walked up to the Blessed Sacrament in adoration. She walked up to Jesus, and right in front of Jesus, she waved to him in the Eucharist. Hi, Jesus. I mean, that made an impression on me. Here's this child's faith. And I wondered, do I really believe like this child believes?
Yeah.
Childlike faith.
Childlike
You know,
faith.
Jesus says, unless you're willing to become like a child, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. And that's not meaning childish. That's being childlike. That means that we are to be trustful like a child.
Yeah.
Just like a child trusts his parents to feed them, to nourish them,
Sure.
to take care of them, we're to be like that with God. Total trust and abandonment in our relationship with God.
So, Father, in an espresso cup, what would you say? How do we best enter a church?
Don't be afraid. How many times throughout the gospel does Jesus say, be not afraid? Over 300.
Over 300
Over
times.
300 times. Actually, that's in the Old Testament, throughout the New Testament. There
Okay.
is some form of be not afraid. And I think that this pilgrimage gives us an opportunity to ask those questions, to ask the fundamental questions of life.
Pilgrims of Hope, the Jubilee, do not be afraid. Father, our spiritual espresso.
Do not be afraid.